was soft with falling snow. The silent fjord beneath moon glow. No sound except the freezing breeze and distant waves upon the sea. A lonely fire burned on the shore, where old men sang of ancient wars, and voices lost to memory. The young warriors sat around, listening closely to the sounds of stories carried through the years, of victory and loss and tears, of brothers who once crossed the tide with dragon ships and fearless pride before they vanished with the wind. One old scout slowly raised his eyes toward green lights dancing through the sky. The northern lights return tonight, he whispered softly by the fire. They come for souls both brave and true, for warriors who always knew. The north itself lives in the heart. Then silence wrapped the frozen land like gentle snow upon their hands. The mountains stood like ancient kings, watching over everything. The younger men began to sing a melody both dark and deep, like echoes drifting through the sea. We were born beneath the storm, raised by oceans cold and wild, guided by the raven's cry, carried by the northern sky. If tonight our story ends, let the winds remember us. Let Valhalla speak our names. The fire cracked against the dark, sending sparks into the stars. The old scout closed his weary eyes as tears reflected northern lights. For every brother lost to war still lived within the ancient song, still walked beside them through the snow. Far away the longships slept, frozen near the icy cliffs, their dragon heads beneath the frost, like ghosts of legends never gone. The sea itself seemed half asleep, yet every wave still softly sang of fearless hearts and northern blood. And when the final fire died, the young warriors looked to the sky, where green light slowly moved above, like spirits dancing through the dark. No fear remained inside their souls, only peace both deep and strong, like home returning after war. The cold wind carried one last song across the mountains toward the dawn, a melody of loss and pride, of brothers standing side by side. And somewhere past the fading night, beyond the stars and northern lights, Valhalla waited calm and bright. Slept beneath the mist. The frozen dawn was pale and still. Far in the north the mountain stood, like ancient gods above the world. A single raven crossed the sky, while distant drums began to rise, like echoes from forgotten times. The fire burned inside the hall, casting shadows on the walls. Old warriors sat in silence there, their eyes reflecting smoke and flame. Each scar upon their weathered skin told stories carried by the wind of battles no one could forget. Then slowly one man rose to stand, an axe of iron in his hands. His braided hair touched heavy fur, his voice was deep as winter storms. He looked toward the darkened sea and spoke like ancient destiny. Tonight, Valhalla calls our name. Inside the war drums beat like giant hearts, awakening the northern dark. Outside the snow began to fall, soft and cold upon the world, as longships waited by the shore. We were not born for peaceful days, nor golden crowns, nor quiet graves. We were born where storms survive, where fearless hearts alone endure. If death should meet us on the sea, then let the gods remember us and open white Valhalla's gates. The horns erupted through the fjord, a sound that shook the frozen world. The wolves howled somewhere in the hills, as torches lit the falling snow. The dragon ships began to move, cutting through the icy waves toward lands consumed by war and fire. The rowers sang in voices low, a melody both dark and strong. The rhythm matched the beating drums like one great heart beneath the storm. The northern wind filled every sail, the raven flew above the fleet, guiding warriors through the night. Far beyond the blackened sea, the enemy fires could be seen like dying stars across the coast, awaiting up the dawn would bring. Yet not one Viking showed fear, for every soul already knew glory waits beyond the storm. And as the first light touched the waves, the old scout softly raised his voice, a final song before the war, a song of brothers, steel and snow. The warriors listened silently, while northern lights filled up the sky, and Valhalla called them home. the land, black clouds twisting over sand. The ocean roared against the cliffs like beasts escaping from abyss. The oldest skull looked toward the sky and whispered low, "Tonight we fight beneath the eyes of ancient gods." The warriors gathered one by one, their armor glowing in the storm. Some kissed runes around their necks, some sharpened blades in silence stark. No laughter filled the hall that night, only the sound of drums and fire and heavy breathing before war. A young man barely grown to age stepped forward from the gathered ranks. His father died in battle years before. His brothers lost to distant war. Still fire burned inside his eyes, bright enough to challenge storms, bright enough to frighten kings. The enemy arrived at dawn, 10,000 strong across the plains. Their banners black, their horses wild, their armor shining cold as death. Yet through the fog the Vikings came, slow, deliberate, without fear, like thunder walking toward the world. The battle struck with brutal force, axes split through iron swords. The shield walls crashed like mountain stone. The war cry shook the frozen earth. The young warrior fought like flame, his father's axe inside his hands, carving legend through the storm. Changed the course of war. The Viking banners nearly fell. Then from the smoke the old skald rose, still beating loudly on his drum. The rhythm spread through every soul, and suddenly the northern charge hit harder than the wrath of gods. When silence covered earth again, snow drifted softly through the dead. The surviving warriors stood tall, those scars now mark them evermore. The young man looked beyond the storm toward skies beginning to grow gold, and whispered softly, "We endure." Watch through endless snow as northern armies marched below, their banners torn by freezing winds, their hearts still burning deep within. No king alive could break their pride. No storm could force the north to hide, for battle lived beneath their skin. The enemy demanded chains, demanded land, demanded names, but silence answered every threat. Until the war horns thundered loud, the Viking chieftain raised his axe and roared with fury dark and vast. The North will never kneel to crowns. Ships crossed the iron sea through waves that swallowed weaker fleets. Each rower sang old battle hymns about the glory death can bring. The drums echoed against the cliffs like ancient gods awakening to witness what the night became. At sunrise steel began to fall, the battlefield consumed them all. Axes flashed like lightning storms, turning warriors into myths. The strongest fighters pushed ahead through walls of fire and countless dead, still screaming loud for Valhalla. One brother carried wounded men back through the smoke again. Though arrows pierced his heavy shield, he never left the battlefield. Together born, together die, the Vikings roared into the sky. Their voices shaking earth and sea. The enemy lines slowly broke, consumed by fear and ash and smoke. The northern banners filled the wind like wolves victorious once again. The chieftain climbed the blood-stained hill and watched the silent world stand still beneath the cold, eternal stars. That night the mead halls burned with song, the scouts sang loud till early dawn, of fearless hearts and warrior pride, of brothers standing side by side. And every flame inside the hall seemed to whisper through the walls. The North will never bow to fear. No fear lives in northern blood, only fire, only storms, only hearts too wild to break, only souls the cold transform. From childhood we were taught to stand with axe and shield in frozen hands, against whatever fate may bring. The snow fell heavy through the dark, covering tracks and broken hearts. The enemy had burned the farms and dragged the weak through iron chains. But now the Viking drums returned, and every torch beside them burned like vengeance, walking through the night. Beside the fire, his sons had fallen years before, defending one small northern shore. Still every battle he remained, still every scar became his strength, like stone untouched by wind and rain. The longships landed before dawn, their dragon heads cutting through fog. The enemy awoke in fear, hearing battle cries draw near. The Vikings stormed the frozen beach with brutal strength beyond belief, like Ragnarok itself arrived. Steel clashed louder than the storm, axes split both shield and bone. The rivers carried crimson waves, past warriors sent to honored graves. The old man fought with savage pride, like Odin raging by their side. No weakness left within his soul. Then suddenly the war drums stopped. Silence spread across the coast. The enemy king fell to knees, while ravens circled overhead. The Vikings raised their swords on high and shouted toward the burning sky. The North remembers all its dead. The signs of war, the scouts still sang in crowded halls of fearless men who would not fall. And every child who heard the song would feel the northern spirit strong, awaken deep within their soul. Axes high tonight. Let the North prepare for war. Hear the drums beyond the tide. Hear the wolves begin to roar. Every warrior born from storms, every soul by battle fought, marches now forevermore. stretched far and wide, like darkness swallowing the sky. Yet still the Vikings laughed as one for every battle yet to come. Only made them feel alive. The old berserker beat his chest, a bearskin hanging from his neck. His scars told stories none could speak, of frozen seas and shattered kings. He looked toward the northern lights and whispered softly to the night, Odin, give us strength again. Cold and thousands charged without control. The shield wall crashed like mountain storms, turning order into chaos. Axes rose and helmets split. The battlefield became abyss, where fearless northern legends fall. Blade. Still he fought with empty hands. His brothers formed around him fast, like wolves defending one of their own. No fear, no fear, the Vikings cried. Their voices rolled like thunder wide across the blood-stained frozen storm. The storm itself began to turn as villages and ships still burned. The sky grew black with ash and smoke. The earth beneath their footsteps shook. Still none would bow and none would flee for freedom and eternity. To warriors born from ice and blood. At night they stood beside the sea, watching flames fade silently. The youngest fighter raised his horn and swore the North would carry on. Then all together voices rose like thunder through eternal snow. Valhalla waits beyond the storm. Turned red above the sea, like fire forged by destiny. The longships waded near the shore, while distant thunder started war. The warriors stood in silence cold, their hearts more fierce than chains of gold, prepared to fight forevermore. Drums began like beating hearts, awakening the ancient dark. Each Viking raised his axe on high and roared beneath the storm-filled sky. Tonight we fight, tonight we rise. Their voices shook the mountainsides like wolves unleashed that cannot die. fearfully as dragon ships crossed blackened seas. The northern banners filled the wind like shadows where the gods had been. No mercy burned inside their eyes, only the hunger born from ice and strength no king could ever bend. One warrior walked through fire and smoke, a massive blade within his hold. Runic tattoos crossed his chest like marks from Odin's hand himself. His brothers followed close behind, bound together soul and mind by blood no battle could destroy. Clash exploded through the night, steel and fury infinite. Axes shattered, shields apart, war drums thundered through the dark. The ravens circled overhead as warriors painted fields in red, still screaming from their savage hearts. Fighter raised his hand and pulled another from the sand. No brother dies alone tonight, he roared before rejoining fight. The northern spirit burned too strong inside the hearts where they belonged, like endless fire in winter sky. The survivors spoke each fallen name, then lifted horns toward the sky, where ancient warrior spirits fly. And somewhere past the storm and cold, the gates of Valhalla opened gold for men who fought without fear of death. Appeared above the sea, only endless misery. The storm had chased the fleet for days, through crushing waves and freezing rain. The oldest sailors whispered low that death itself sailed close below, waiting beneath the endless gray. The warriors slept beside their shields, dreaming still of distant fields, where golden halls and roaring flames would welcome those who earned their names. Some prayed quietly to the gods, some sharpened axes in the dark, preparing for the dawn of war. jagged rock. The enemy fires burned ahead, like glowing eyes among the dead. The Viking leader gripped his blade, its handle worn, its edge still stained by battles fought long years before. He turned and faced his weary men. No speech was needed there and then, for every warrior understood the sacred pull of brotherhood. Together they had crossed the sea, together they would victory seek, or fall beneath the northern sky. The horns exploded through the mist, a sound the enemy would never forget. The charge came fast like wolves unleashed. The dragon banner shook the wind. Axes rose and shields collapsed. The battlefield became a storm of roaring fire, blood, and steel. One warrior fell upon the shore, still reaching for his broken sword. Another lifted him once more and carried him through smoke and war. Their loyalty stronger than death, a bond surviving final breath, like legends carved in ancient stone. When silence finally filled the land, snow drifted softly over sand. The survivors looked toward the sky, where ravens slowly circled high. And somewhere past the fading storm, beyond the reach of mortal world, the gates of Valhalla opened wide. The thunder rolled across the peaks, while icy winds tore through the trees. 1,000 warriors filled the pass, like shadows carved from northern wrath. Their armor dark, their faces grim. No fear remained inside of them, only the hunger born from war. The youngest among them carried scars, earned beneath forgotten stars. His father died in battle years before, defending one small northern shore. Now the young man took was guided by the ancient oath to honor blood forevermore. The enemy blocked the mountain road with sharpened spears and heavy stone. Their numbers stretched beyond the snow like rivers dark and cold below. But still the Viking chieftain laughed and raised his axe into the storm as lightning split the sky in half. The charge began with deafening cries, wild enough to shake the skies. The shield wall smashed like crashing waves, sending warriors to early graves. Steel sparks burst through the freezing air, while ravens circled everywhere above the chaos of the slain. Though blood ran heavy at his feet, each thunderous strike upon the drum called fearless northern spirits home. The warriors roared and fought harder still, driven by unbreakable will, like beasts refusing chains and thrones. By sunset snow turned black and red, the mountain filled with countless dead. Yet through the smoke the Viking stood still, breathing cold northern air. The young warrior raised his sword and screamed so loud the cliffs returned his voice across the frozen world. That night the fires lit the peaks, and scouts sang songs for weeks and weeks of thunder warriors fierce and proud, who stood unbroken in the crowd. And every child from that day on would hear the legend, carried strong through storms that howl across the north. For 7 years the Sea King roamed across black waters far from home. His longships feared in every land, from frozen cliffs to burning sands. No ruler dared to block his way, for storms themselves seem to obey, the fury resting in his hands. But word arrived one bitter night, his homeland burned without a fight. An enemy from southern shores had slaughtered families by the fjords. The Sea King listened without sound, then slowly drove his axe straight down into the wooden hall's old floor. Lum, hum, lum, 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 hum, lum, 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 lum. ancient drums, the warriors sharpen blades till dawn, preparing for the blood to come. The old men carve protective runes, while ravens gathered near the roof, as if they sense approaching doom. The fleet returned through monstrous rain, the waves crashed hard like iron chains. Lightning ripped the northern sky, reflecting hatred in their eyes. Each rower pushed with savage force toward the smoke along the coast, where vengeance waited in the night. Dragon prows outside their gates, the Viking storm through walls of fire, consumed by rage and fierce desire. The Sea King fought with brutal grace, no fear or mercy on his face, like wrath itself had taken form. One enemy king begged for life, dropping sword and shield alike, but silence filled the frozen air. The Sea King only stood and stared, then turned away without a word, and left the man destroyed by fear before his hall collapsed in flame. Stood free, the ravens circled quietly. The Sea King climbed the snowy hill and watched the burning shoreline still. No smile appeared upon his face, for vengeance never leaves a trace, except the scars no time can heal.
The fjord lay silent under frost, a grave for ships and men long lost. The moonlight touched the frozen tide, where restless northern spirits hide. The cliffs stood tall like ancient guards, protecting rune-carved broken shards of kingdoms swallowed by the night. A lone horn echoed through the mist, a sound no warrior ever missed. From distant hills the fires appeared, and every child in silence feared the return of blades and burning sails, of iron storms and shattered shields that haunted every winter year. scar across his weathered skin. His heavy cloak dragged through the snow like shadows moving dark and slow. He carried not a kingly crown, but earned respect from every town where northern rivers froze below. Ash on flesh and tied wolf teeth across their chest. Old battle songs began to rise like spirits calling from the skies. The youngest fighter gripped his spear, trying hard to hide his fear beneath the gaze of hardened eyes. Dawn, the enemy arrived with banners dark as ravens fly. Their footsteps thundered through the hills like giants marching in the mist. Yet not a single Viking moved. They stood like mountains, cold and huge, awaiting fate with iron will. Then suddenly the war cry came, wild enough to shake the flames. Axes spun through frozen air, while splintered shields flew everywhere. The clash of steel became a storm. The battlefield no longer formed, but turned into a savage nightmare. The icy river slowly flowed past broken swords and shattered stone, where fallen warriors slept alone. The survivors built a massive flame, and one by one spoke every name, so none would fade beyond the cold. Forest wrapped in snow, where icy northern rivers flow, a lone berserker walked the night, guided only by torchlight, his body marked with ancient signs, his spirit sharpened hard by time, his soul consumed by endless fight. The wolves themselves would walk beside. This warrior feared both far and wide. The scowls would whisper of his rage that burned across the bloody age. No enemy could make him kneel, for pain itself no longer real. Inside the beast he could not cage. northern people left to die. The berserker slowly raised his head, and silence filled the hall instead. Before he gave a single cry, the drums began the call to war, like storms crashing upon the shore. The warriors gathered row by row, their faces glowing in the snow. Each man prepared his axe and shield to stand upon the battlefield, where only fearless spirits go. Longships cross the sea beneath the stars endlessly. The waves slammed hard against the wood, yet still the northern warriors stood. Their voices rose through freezing rain, like beasts unleashed from iron chains, consumed by ancient brotherhood. The battle came before first light, and shook the mountains with its might. The berserker charged the shield wall first, like Odin's wrath itself unleashed. Axes shattered, armor black, the enemy lines bent and cracked beneath the fury of the beast. When silence covered all once more, the ravens gathered by the shore. The berserker stood beneath the dawn, though half his brothers now were gone. He raised his blade toward the sky, and let the cold wind hear his cry. For those now feasting in Valhalla's halls. Far north beyond the frozen tide, a kingdom stood through endless time. Its halls were carved from ancient stone, where warrior kings once held their throne. The fires burned through winter storms, keeping old traditions warm inside the land the gods had known. The people lived by axe and shield, by blood spilled proudly on the field. The children learned the warrior way before they reached their 15th day. The old skalds sang of Odin's might, and battles fought through endless nights, where fearless men earned deathless fame. One winter came a warning cry, dark sails appeared beneath the sky. An enemy from distant lands prepared to strike the frozen sand. Their armies vast, their banners black, like shadows rising to attack the northern kingdom's final stand.
beard reached heavy chain across a chest still built for war. He lifted high his ancient sword, and every warrior praised the Lord who forged their hearts through ice and storm. The battle came with roaring fire, a wall of rage and fierce desire. The shield wall crashed like mountain stone as war drums shook the frozen coast. Spears flew dark across the sky, while wounded warriors refused to die, still gripping axes in the snow. A father fought beside his son until the setting of the sun. Together they defended ground where countless enemies fell down. Their loyalty stronger than fear, their battle cries loud and clear like thunder echoing around. When dawn returned through drifting smoke, the enemy had finally broke. The kingdom still stood proud and tall, its banners flying over all. And songs were born that very night of warriors who chose to fight till Valhalla opened wide its halls.
Cold and deep, no sound except the restless sea. The mountains stood like ancient kings beneath the stars and frozen wind. Then through the dark the war horns cried, and every warrior rose with pride as drums awakened everything. The iron wolves prepared for war, their armor scarred from raids before. Each man carried a heavy blade, forged inside forgotten caves. The fire reflected in their eyes like storms alive beneath the skies. No soul among them feared the grave. A young berserker led the way, his massive axe still stained from raids. Runic tattoos crossed his chest like marks the gods themselves had blessed. The older warriors watched in silence, for deep within his burning violence lived the fury of the North itself. The longships thundered through the waves like beasts escaping ancient caves. The dragon prows cut through the storm while freezing rain around them poured. The rowers sang in voices low of brothers buried under snow. gods adore.
At sunrise came the enemy line. 10,000 shields began to shine across the cliffs beside the sea, where kings demanded victory. But still the Vikings marched ahead toward fields where countless men had bled, without a trace of fear to see. The clash exploded, fierce and wild, like thunder trapped beneath the sky. Axes crashed through wood and bone, while ravens screamed above the smoke. The iron wolves became a storm, a force too brutal to control, as enemy ranks slowly broke. When battle finally turned to ash, the fjord lay silent after a clash. The survivors gathered near the flame and spoke each fallen brother's name, then raised their cups toward the sky, where northern spirits never die, and Valhalla forever reigns. The storm arrived without a sound. Then thunder shook the frozen ground. The forest bent beneath the sky, as Odin's ravens started to fly. The warriors gathered, torch in hand, prepared to raid a distant land, where enemies awaited doom. A giant stood beside the flame, no man alive could match his frame. His braided beard was streaked with gray, his eyes had seen too many graves. He raised his axe toward the storm, and every warrior answered strong with battle cries that shook the wave. Began their endless beat, like iron hearts that never sleep. The women watched from cliffs of stone as longships vanished into storm. The children whispered ancient prayers for fathers swallowed by the dark, where only fearless souls are born. Vikings cross the sea through waves as tall as ancient trees. The cold rain
lashed against their skin, yet still the fire burned within. No hunger, pain, or freezing wind could break the oath they carried in their hearts of iron, forged through war. At dawn they reached the enemy shore and heard the distant horns of war. The shield wall formed across the field like mountains forged from iron shields, but through the mist the Vikings came, consumed by rage and northern flame, too fierce for any man to stop. The rivers overflowed with death. Axes crashed like thunder strikes, while warriors roared into the night. The sky turned black with smoke and ash. A steel and fury violently clashed beneath the pale and dying light. When silence finally touched the land, the snow was red across the sand. The surviving warriors raised their swords and thanked the old forgotten gods for strength to stand through fear and pain and earn eternal glory's name inside the halls where Odin waits. In ancient stone, before the gods upon the throne. No brother here would stand alone, no coward's blood within our bones. The winter winds became our song. They shaped our spirits fierce and strong, and led us where the brave belong. The longships waited by the bay, their dragon heads prepared for war. The sea was rough, the skies were grey, yet still we sailed from northern shores. The ravens flew above the mast like shadows from forgotten pasts, guiding us toward battle's roar. Each warrior wore his father's blade, still stained by war's long turn to shade. The scars upon our skin remain like stories carved through years of pain. But none among us feared the end, for death itself became a friend to men who walk through fire and rain. reached the enemy land, a frozen coast of ash and sand. The torches lit the bitter air as thousands gathered waiting there. Their king stood tall in armor black, yet even he stepped slowly back when Viking horns split through the air. The battle raged from night till dawn beneath the pale and dying moon. The shield wall broke with crushing force as axes carved their brutal course. The screams of war filled every breath while ravens circled over death above the smoke and frozen earth. One brother fell beside the sea, still clutching tightly to his shield. Another knelt beside his head and swore revenge before he fled, then rose again through blood and flame to strike the men who caused the pain, until the shore itself turned red. Now songs are sung in distant halls where fire dances on the walls of warriors who gave their all when ancient northern honor called, and through the storms their spirits rise beyond the cold eternal skies, where Valhalla awaits them all. Mountain fires burned at night, their crimson glow a fearsome sight. Across the fjords the war horns cry, as countless longships reach the tide. The northern sky was cold and black, yet no true warrior turned back. With Odin's ravens as their guide, the blacksmiths forged the final blades inside the smoke of iron caves. Each hammer strike like thunder rolled upon the steel as bright as gold. The sparks rose dancing through the dark like souls becoming battle marked for men both fearless, wild and bold. Children watch the warriors march beneath the ancient stonework arch. Their fathers wrapped in fur and chain, prepared to face the storm again. The old men lifted cups of mead and spoke of glory, blood and creed, of battles fought through ice and rain. The enemy stood near the shore with shields like walls prepared for war, but through the fog the Vikings came like wolves consumed by northern flame. Their footsteps shook the frozen land, each warrior with axe in hand, determined all would know their began with savage cries. Beneath the pale and endless skies, axes shattered shields apart, while battle madness filled each heart. The rivers echoed sounds of steel, and none among them chose to kneel, though death itself stood in the dark. A wounded warrior raised his sword and shouted praises to the gods. His brothers gathered by his side. Together still they chose to fight. Their loyalty stronger than fear, their voices roaring loud and clear, like thunder breaking through the night. When morning touched the silent snow, the smoke still drifted far below. The fallen rested cold and still upon the blood-stained northern hills. Yet skulls would sing through years to come of fearless hearts that beat as one, and fires that burn in Valhalla still. Clouds gathered above the bay as 50 longships cut the waves. The Raven King stood at the front, a mountain forged through endless wars. His cloak was heavy, soaked by rain. His axe had shattered iron chains and filled 100 enemy graves. The sky like Odin speaking from on high. The warriors answered with a roar that shook the cold and distant shore. Each shield reflected torchlight flames, and every man proclaimed the names of brothers marching into war. Appeared alive, as if the gods would now decide which warriors earned eternal fame and which would vanish without name. But none aboard the ship showed fear, for death had always traveled near beside the Viking heart aflame. At midnight came the battle cry. The enemy saw dragon eyes carved into
to prows of ancient wood as northern warriors proudly stood. Then axes fell like storms unleashed, and shield walls cracked beneath the beast of fury no man understood. A young berserker led the charge through smoke and shattered, splintered guards, his body marked with runic scars. His rage burned brighter than the stars. No wound could force the man to kneel, for pain itself became unreal inside the chaos born from war. King fought through the fire like wrath itself, given form entire. 3 enemies fell by his hand before he reached the final stand. There on the hill of ash and snow, he raised his axe for one last blow as thunder shook the frozen land. When silence came, the ravens flew across the sky of iron blue. The battle ended soaked in flame, yet all would still remember names of warriors who chose the sword and earned their place beside the Lord. Within Valhalla's golden gates, ran fast through falling snow. Beside the men they seemed to know the scent of war upon the wind, the hunger buried deep within. The torches glowed through winter night as warriors gathered for the fight, where only fearless hearts begin. The old drums thundered through the trees like storms unleashed upon the seas. Each beat awakened ancient rage, passed down through every blood-stained age. The young men painted runes in black and swore that none would turn their back when battle opened like a cage. Far north beyond the frozen stone, the enemy had grown too strong. They burned the farms and broke the land and forced the weak beneath their hand. But now the longships filled the shore, and every warrior thirsted for the hour to make their final stand. A giant warrior raised his axe. Its blade was scarred by countless acts. His braided hair was white with frost. His eyes remembered all he lost. He shouted to the storm above, for Odin and the blood we love.
Then through the snow his shadow crossed. The battle came with savage fire, a roaring wave of rage entire. The shield wall crashed like thunder loud beneath the dark, relentless clouds. Steel rang against the freezing air, and everywhere were cries of war that rose beyond the mountain shroud. The wolves themselves began to howl as ravens circled battleground. The rivers turned to crimson streams like something from forgotten dreams. Yet still the northern warriors fought for every lesson they were taught, and every soul the cold wind keeps. At night the survivors raised their horns for fallen brothers never gone. The fire danced upon their scars beneath the silent watching stars, and through the cold the scouts would sing of fearless men and northern kings whose spirits live where Valhalla calls. The sea was black beneath the storm. The northern winds began to form, great waves that struck the dragon prow, but none would turn their longships now. The warriors stood with burning eyes, like wolves beneath the frozen skies, prepared to meet their sacred vow. The old king raised his weathered blade, its silver edged by lightning made. He spoke of battles long ago, of brothers buried under snow. The youngest warriors held their breath and swore to laugh in front of death before the drums began to grow. Across the cliffs the torches burned for fathers who had not returned. The women watched beside the shore as ravens cried forevermore. The sound of horns cut through the night like spirits calling men to fight beyond the cold eternal fjord. Prepared their shield across the dark and frozen field. 1,000 spears began to shine like winter stars in grim design. But still the Vikings marched ahead where countless warriors had bled to carve their names through space and time. The clash of iron shook the ground so loud the mountains threw it back around. Axes crashed through shield and bone, while battle cries became a storm. The smoke and snow consumed the air, yet every warrior standing there fought like a beast upon the throne. One brother fell beside the king, still clutching tightly to the ring his father gave before he died. Upon another battlefield the king knelt down within the snow and swore the enemy would know the wrath true northern blood can wield. When dawn arrived through clouds of ash, the fjord was silent after clash. The last longship remained alone beside the sea of shattered stone. Yet songs of those who fought that day still echo cold across the bay, where Viking legends still are born. Cold rivers carry ancient songs of battles where our blood belongs. The northern stars above us shine like torches lit by gods divine. Our warriors gather side by side with sharpened steel and fearless pride, awaiting Odin's sacred sign. The snow falls softly on our skin, but fire awakens deep within. The wolves run fast beside the shore as war drums shake the fjords once more. Our enemies can hear the sound of Viking feet upon the ground, like thunder rolling into war. The banners dance within the storm. The sea itself begins to form great waves that crash like hammer blows across the ships in frozen rows. Yet none among our ranks will kneel, for every heart is carved from steel, and every soul already knows. The battle chants grow loud and wild, enough to wake the ancient child inside the hearts of broken men who rise like beasts again and again. Our fathers watch from halls above with eyes of pride and warrior love as blood runs crimson through the glen. The clash of iron fills the air, no coward's prayer is spoken there. Only the roar of battle cries beneath the cold eternal skies. The axes swing with ruthless grace as warriors
night we feast beside the flame and drink for every fallen name. The mead flows heavy through the hall while shadows dance upon the wall. The skalds sing loud of ancient kings and all the glory battle brings to warriors standing proud and tall. When morning lights the frozen land, we sail again with sword in hand. No fear can touch the hearts we own, for Valhalla calls us home. And through the storms our voices rise like thunder tearing through the skies. The north forever shapes our bones. Through storms we sail beneath black skies. The northern wind becomes our guide. Iron shields against the rain. Our brothers march through endless pain. The drums of war begin to rise. Fire reflected in our eyes. Valhalla waits beyond the tide. Axes raised beneath the moon. We know the final dawn comes soon. The ravens circle over stone. No warrior here will die alone. The mountains echo battle cries. The frost itself begins to rise as ancient horns begin to groan. We cross the seas through ice and flame. The jaws remember every name. Our fathers carved these runes in blood beside the cold relentless flood. No fear remains within our chest. A Viking soul can never rest until he joins the gods above. Tonight the fires brightly burn for brothers who will not return. Their swords now rest in halls of gold. Their stories through the ages told. The wolves howl loudly in the snow as through the darkened woods we go, with hearts too fierce to ever fold. The enemy shakes, hearing drums. They know the storm of Odin comes. Our longships cut the frozen waves toward lands where only death behaves. The thunder rolls across the sea. like roaring gods who set us free from quiet lives and silent graves. Raise your voices to the sky for every warrior born to die. Steel and honor guide our hand. We fight beside our brother Ben. No chain shall ever hold us down. We seek no soft and golden crown, but glory carved through blood and sand. At dawn we stand on fields of smoke, among the ash of shattered oak. The final horn begins to sound. The earth itself begins to pound, and with one roar we charge ahead toward fate. We're counting